The zoning revolution that invented the wedding cake skyline in the early 20th century, New York City was growing upward at a pace that alarmed both officials and residents. Advances in steel frame construction and elevator technology had freed buildings from traditional height limits. And developers eager to maximize rentable floor area on increasingly valuable land were pushing towers ever higher. The 1915 Equitable Building, a massive and broken slab that rose 40 stories straight from the sidewalk, became a turning point. Its sheer bulk cast long shadows over surrounding streets, blocked daylight from neighboring buildings, and restricted air circulation. Public outrage followed, and the city was forced to confront a question it had never formally answered: how tall and how dense should a city be allowed to become? The response was the New York City Zoning Resolution of 1916, the first comprehensive zoning law in the United States. Rather than imposing an absolute height limit, the law took a more nuanced approach. It divided the city into use districts separating residential, commercial, and industrial functions, but its most visually consequential feature was the setback requirement. Buildings could rise straight up only to a certain height, determined by the width of the street they faced. Beyond that point, they had to step back in a series of receding tiers, ensuring that light and air could still reach the street below. The regulation was driven by civic concerns, not artistic ambition. City planners were focused on health, safety, and livability, responding to fears that Manhattan would otherwise become a canyon of perpetual shadow. Yet the law had an unintended and lasting aesthetic consequence. Architects, suddenly constrained by geometry rather than pure ambition, began to treat setbacks as a compositional challenge. Instead of resisting the rules, many embraced them, transforming regulatory necessity into formal expression. Nowhere is this more evident than in the Art Deco skyscrapers of the 1920s and 1930s. Buildings like the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building translated zoning envelopes into elegant, tapering silhouettes. Their stacked masses, rising rhythmically toward the sky, resembled layered cakes, hence the enduring nickname wedding cake skyline. Ornament, spires, and crowns emphasized verticality, making structures feel aspirational rather than oppressive. Even as they complied precisely with zoning diagrams, without the 1916 law, Manhattan's skyline might have followed a very different path. Developers had little incentive to relinquish buildable area, and the city could easily have become a dense wall of sheer, monolithic towers. Instead, the setback rule introduced variation, lightness, and drama into the urban profile. It produced a skyline defined not by uniformity, but by contrast and rhythm. The story of the wedding cake skyline is a reminder that some of the most influential design movements are not born from artistic manifestos or visionary theories, but from practical attempts to manage everyday problems. A regulation intended to protect light and air ended up shaping one of the most recognizable urban landscapes in the world, proving that constraints, when skillfully navigated, can become powerful engines of creativity.